Hi everyone, I'm Sam from Bio Cosplay. Today we're taking a look at the SH Figuarts Kaiju number 8. I got this figure from Hobby Genki and I originally received my order about a month ago, but I had some issues with damage to the figures in that order. Hobby Genki ended up replacing the figures. I had contacted them through their website and opened a ticket and whatnot. They didn't actually say they were going to replace the figures until I posted on my YouTube community section though. But it is good that they ended up replacing them. I just hope that if others have issues with their orders, they can just go through the customer service and don't have to rely on posting on social media. That first figure had some pretty loose joints and things falling off. I had recorded a review with it, and I just went ahead and kind of edited it and redid some of the parts where this new figure that wasn't damaged is an improvement, since I didn't want to redo the whole review. I am going to be a little bit critical of the figure in this review, mainly because I've kind of been obsessively looking at reference art for Kaiju number 8 because I'm making a cosplay of him. But I do still like the figure, and I'm having a good time posing it, so I hope it doesn't come across too harshly. And with all that out of the way, let's get into the review! Here's a look at the packaging. We've got a big picture of the figure here on the side. There's some caution tape design going on here and at the bottom, along with some halftone detailing behind that caution tape. Nice window with a view of the figure. It says Kaiju number 8. On the top we've got more of that halftone detailing, a little window for light at the top, a pose of the figure on the side, another pose of the figure on this side, and a bunch of poses on the back, and it continues those teal accents and halftone design. Pretty good box overall. I like it. Here he is out of the package. I think the colors look really nice on this. The teal really pops against the dark gray. Mine does have just a tiny smidge of blue paint on the bicep there. That's not a huge deal. I can probably just get that off of some alcohol. Porchy's coming to assist us. Thank you, Porchy. Thanks. As I had said at the beginning, I'm making a Kaiju number 8 cosplay, and I did sculpt a Kaiju number 8 mask. Link in the description if you want to see anything about this. So taking a closer look at some of the details here, the face sculpt is okay. The figure in general is definitely based more off the anime than the manga, which is fine. I assume the anime is going to be more popular than the manga. I'm not really sure what the numbers are on watching versus reading these days, but the anime's definitely been promoted a lot. So the face sculpt does have details sculpted in there. Unfortunately, without a wash or anything, they kind of get a little bit lost, especially at a distance. It kind of all just melds together. It's also a little bit of a soft sculpt. By that I mean there's not a ton of depth to each of the features. Like the ridges along the forehead here don't stick out much from the base plane of the face. I do like that they got these little carved out bits on the temples there, as well as the two lines at the top of the head. I wish maybe there was a little bit more veininess in the face. He has a lot of weird veiny looking textures. The paint for the eyes and teeth is very clean though. I do like that they continued the teeth back into the neck. And speaking of the neck, back at the neck here, there are overlapping plates. I'll show more how those work in the articulation, but these have a nice sculpt to them. A lot of carved out little divots. That looks very reminiscent of both the anime and the manga, so that's good. They do kind of flare out a little bit at the back, kind of giving him like a samurai helmet sort of look. At the neck, there are some overlapping segments that from some angles can look a little overly jointy, I guess. I don't know how much they could have avoided that with the design they went with. Has pretty elongated proportions, so I don't mind it too much. I do like that they did different scaling on the neck and chest versus the back of the head. He has multiple textures throughout his body, so I like that they didn't just go with one texture overall. So coming down to the chest, you can see more of the scale texture on the chest here with the bones sticking out. Those look very nice. It's a nice bright teal blue on the arms and the tum. I think the chest could have been a bit wider and the shoulders could have been a bit bigger. I don't think it's inaccurate to the anime because he is a bit more thin in the anime. But my preferences are definitely influenced by reading the manga and looking at that art a ton. On the biceps, there are some vertical striations here to kind of mimic musculature. And then on the forearms and the back of the arms, there's more of this horizontal texture. There's the scaling on the shoulders. And then there's another little section on the forearm here that has more of the vertical muscular striations. They went with a teal ball joint at the wrist, which looks very nice with the overall design. I'm glad they went with that. And the paint on the hands is very clean. The hands also have some of this divoted texture near the thumb, and then the muscular striations in between the knuckles. On the sides of the torso here, these are kind of softish overlays coming up the sides. You can see these kind of bend out of the way. The hips are relatively soft as well, and the top of the legs right here too. Another maybe somewhat odd choice with the sculpt here and the muscles is the way the side flows into the lats on the back. It comes around and then dips in and then comes back out for the back muscle. It's not really how that works. Also from the front, you can't see these muscles at all. I wish this would stick out a bit more to give him more of a V taper. So from the front, he's pretty tubular. So if they would bulk this out a little bit and increase the shoulder size, it would give him a much more imposing look. On the back, he does have the pointy spine that's in a bone white sort of color. And then they did capture the different layers of kind of armory bits he has, as well as these muscular striations. Then we got the sculpted booty. I'm pleased that with the joint for the hips here, it has the muscular striations and isn't just a plain black joint. The legs are very long. Again, not inaccurate to the anime, but does lend to reducing how muscular and imposing he looks. One of the reasons being that the hips stick out basically to the shoulders. So if it were my preference, the chest would be at least as wide as the hips, and then the shoulders would be wider than the hips. But here, the shoulders are hitting right about where the hips do. They line up pretty well. Some of that's because of the design of the hips here. To make it work, the angle has to stick out a little bit. You can kind of adjust that in some, but you're never going to get the hips to be more narrow than the chest. He does have the overlapping plates coming down the thighs. That looks nice. The little kneecaps, and then more overlapping plates for the shins. Then he's got his kaiju feet with some blue paint there. He does have the toenails, but they're not painted. I think overall it could have used a wash or some shading, because again, at a distance, a lot of the detail gets a little bit lost, and since the sculpt's kind of soft, it doesn't capture the shadows super well. I still like it because I love Kaiju number 8, and I'm really happy to have a figure of him. Some of the issues I have with the proportions won't be as noticeable once it's posed. It's a little bit like an Amazing Yamaguchi figure in that regard, where in just a neutral stance, maybe it doesn't look quite the best, but maybe once we get him posed, he'll look a little bit better. On to articulation. The faceplate is on a ball peg. And then this upper section of the neck is on a ball peg. And then there's an overlay here. And then the lower section of the neck is also on a ball peg. There are also these 3 plates on the neck. The bottom 2 are on little hinges. Feels like the top one is on a ball peg because it can shift side to side some. So all that's to say, he can look up this much. Then he can look down about this much without the faceplate, and then if we rotate the face on that ball a little bit, then we can get him looking all the way down. There is some swivel here and side to side tilt. It's kind of an interesting design because a lot of the articulation ends up coming from the face. Because it's on that ball peg, you can shift it around a lot, so it helps with getting him looking to the side or up or down more than I would have expected it to. The overlapping nature of the plates here makes it so they can't move a ton because eventually they're going to clash into each other. There's not really any avoiding that. So I think they did do a pretty good job solving that with putting the face on a ball peg. Sometimes the neck overlays can get a little out of line and you have to line them back up. But it's not too terrible. At the shoulders, the arms will go up not quite horizontal. There is full rotation there, and there is a little butterfly joint to bring the arm out. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing. It makes the shoulder look a little bubbly because it's kind of small, but that will help with bringing the arm across the chest a bit. On the back, again, not the most aesthetically pleasing. It kind of just looks like a big ball. That'll also let the arm come down some as well. There's a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows that get pretty good range, and then a ball hinge for the wrists. The ball's pretty big, so you're not going to have any issues with this. At the torso, there are quite a few overlapping segments here. First, the back has a few things going on. This section is on a hinge, so this can hinge out a bit. And then this section is on a ball peg that also slides up and down, like it's slotted into a little sliding rail. So that can slide up and down, and then you get a little bit of movement on the ball peg. So it feels like there's a ball peg at the waist and then a hinge somewhere in the diaphragm. So all together with that, he can lean forward about this much. And you can adjust this lower back plate to hide some of the gaps. And then leaning back, you do have to tuck the lower abdomen back into the pants there. Not a ton of range. Kind of just stands him back upright. Let's see if we can adjust this lower back muscle any. Okay, so if we slide this lower back portion up, it gets a little bit more range. There is some gapping under the pecs. And then there is some side-to-side tilt. And some rotation. It's alright considering there's a bunch of overlapping stuff going on here. It could have some better range going back. Okay, yeah, it seems like if we hinge this out as well. So slide this up, hinge this out, and then we get the maximum range. Still not the greatest, but it's fine. At the hips, the legs will go out this much, kind of 45 degrees-ish. If we rotate the hip, then we can get it to come out more, but then the leg's going to be kind of at a weird angle. It's mostly limited by just the shape of the upper thigh clashing into the hip. There is a thigh swivel. This piece is floating, so you can swivel the lower leg independent of this, which in theory should help with getting this out of the way so you can bring the leg out, but there's not really an angle you can rotate it at to help. Maybe if you rotate it towards the crotch, but even then that's not going to look great. Double jointed knees, they get pretty good range, and here you can really see how much longer the shins are than the thigh. So he's a very lanky boy. I do like that they continued the muscular striation sculpt throughout the knee joint there. At the ankles, there's a ball joint connecting the foot to the leg here. You can wiggle that around on the ball joint, and then for the feet themselves, they can hinge back this much, forward this much, and there is a pretty good ankle rocker and a toe hinge. So overall, the articulation isn't anything crazy, it's just fine. I think that the Guts Berserker armor figure executed the overlapping plates a bit better. I know people don't really like that figure, but I like it. And I think the way they did all the overlapping segments works a little bit better than it does here. On to accessories, he comes with 3 additional faceplates. One where he's looking to the side, one where he's got the shocked eyes with the mouth open, and one where the eyes are wider and filled in with blue, and the mouth is open as well. The paint on all these is very clean. I like the mouth open sculpt. The tongue looks clean in there. So I think these are pretty good faces. I just still wish there was a wash over them to bring out some of the details. For hands, there are the fist hands that come on him in the package, and then some claw hands. And finally, there's an interchangeable shin and forearm So we'll go ahead and assemble these and swap them out. The shin has some little spiky bits, a long one that's slotted into the middle, and then two smaller ones that are slotted into each side. They are keyed so they go into specific spots. And to swap out the shin, we just pop this off. It's going to be the right shin. And we'll need to pop off the foot as well. For mine, the ball peg tends to stay in the shin. You're going to need that because the interchangeable shin does not have its own ball peg. So we'll have to grab that and rip it out. This is also keyed with a square, so we'll shove that into the square hole. And then we can pop the foot back on. With the forearm, kind of the same deal. It's the right forearm. We're just going to pop that off. Pop on the new forearm. And swap the hand. And these are done pretty well. This is where the back of his arm opens up to kind of do like a rocket punch. There's some little teeth along the edge of the arm there, and some red details in the holes on the back of these arm thrusters. And then at the leg, this also looks pretty good. It's got red lines on here, some teeth around it, and then the spikies poking out. So there you can pose him up for when he needs to kill something with the one punch. I like the forearm a little bit more than the shin accessory. You really need the shin in like a specific just standing upright pose for it to make contact with the ground, and it doesn't make it super dynamic. It's alright though. It would have been cool if maybe there were some like energy effects to stick in the back of the arm to make it look like it was really thrusting. Overall, not a ton of accessories. I kind of wish there were more hands other than just the fist hands and the claw hands, like some open hands or gripping hands. For size and comparisons, Kaiju number 8 is standing at about 7 inches tall, which is pretty tall for an SH Figuarts. He's a tall, lanky boy. Here he is with the SH Figuarts guts and the Berserker armor. I talked about the overlapping plates and how I thought maybe it was executed a little bit better there. Some of that might have been because it's a little bit slimmer on the hips, like this hugs the hip joint more, this flares out. And some is just due to the design where these plates can shift a bit more. And Suguru Geto here because I like posing him with any monstrous creatures, and that figure's great. And if you like Jujutsu Kaisen, I definitely recommend it. I don't see a lot of people talking about it. Here he is next to a couple taller SH Figuarts figures, Yamato from One Piece and Super Buu from Dragon Ball Z. Super Buu's definitely a little bit bigger. He's pretty close to Yamato. And speaking of Super Buu, I also have a cosplay of him, as well as a 12-part video series on my YouTube channel where I walk you through every stage of making the costume. Shameless plug. And here's a Marvel Legends X-Men 97 Nightcrawler and a Savage Crucible Imperial Sentry. While this figure does have some limitations and the proportions aren't exactly how I would like, subjectively I'm still enjoying it. It's one that I like having on my desk and just posing around and fiddling with. Objectively, I do wish that he wasn't as tube-shaped in the midsection. I wish that the shoulders were a bit bigger, the chest was a bit broader, and he had more of a V-taper. I think if you're a fan of Kaiju number 8, you'll still enjoy it. I definitely do, but I also love Kaiju number 8, so I was going to be happy to get any figure, really. I'm still considering getting the model kit because the proportions on that look like they're a little bit better, but it probably won't feel quite as good in hand, since model kits tend to feel a little bit hollow. If you're interested in seeing a review of that though, let me know in the comments. Also, let me know if you'll be picking up this figure, and if you've been watching or reading Kaiju number 8. I'll be getting all the Kaiju number 8 figures, so don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see those in the future. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.